Welcome back, everyone. Let's talk about OOP. And you might be wondering why I have a Monopoly board here on the screen. Well, I'm going to use Monopoly to explain OOP to you. And while we're at it, we're also going to design a simpler version of this game as if we were building in any object-oriented programming language. If you have never played Monopoly before, it's a very simple game. Players take turn rolling a pair of dice. So let's say I roll the number 6. So I will move up 6 spots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now these blue boxes are called properties. If I land on a property, I have the option to buy it, if that property has not been bought before. So I will buy it with the amount stated here on the board. However, if another player lands on the same property that I have bought, instead of having the option to buy, they will have to pay me rent. Now that we know how Monopoly works, let's create this game using OOP. The first thing that we need to do is create classes. Classes are the blueprint of our objects, and objects are the instances of the class. In this example, our objects will be instances of the player class and the property class. So let's draw those out first. Here I'll draw the player class. And right next to it, I'll draw the properties class, or property. Okay, so like we talked before, a class is a blueprint. But what does this blueprint consist of? Well, it consists of two things. Things that objects have and things that objects could do, or actions that objects could do. So let's look at the player class. And what are things that player objects have? So for example, a player object has a token. Okay, and if you're not familiar what a token is, a Monopoly token, I'll just share my screen real quick. Those are little pieces that each player has. So they're unique, right? So a player could be a horse, another player could be a car, and etc. Right? So a token is what a player has, right? A player could also have money, right? Each player starts with a set amount of money, and that money fluctuates depending on how well they're doing in the game, right? Also, a player could own properties, right? So this is something that a player has. But what can a player do? Well, to keep it simple, a player could just purchase properties for now. Okay, so let's write purchase property. Okay, sorry if my handwriting got a little small there. Okay, so the top half here is what players could have, and the bottom half here is what players could do, right? So these names are not good names for programming, right? It doesn't really make too much sense. So they have official names. So these are called attributes, what players have. Okay, and what can players do? They're called methods, right? And we heard about these things before. So attributes are what players have. Methods are what players could do. Okay, in Java specifically though, attributes are also referred to member variables. And methods are also referred to member methods. Okay, so we just attach the member in front of it. All right, now let's talk about the properties. And let's go back to the screen share here. And let's go to properties. And we could just see some things that properties have just by looking at the board, right? They have a color, a name, an amount of money that it costs to purchase, right? So let's start with that. And let's build upon that. Okay, so a property, they have a name, right? They have a color, okay? They have a price, okay? And I'll argue that they have a couple other things too. For example, they also will have an owner once that's purchased. At the start, they don't have any owners, but once players fall into that block, that specific block, then they have the option to purchase, right? And like we talked before, they also have a rent price. Okay, and what can properties do? Well, let's say that properties could charge rent. Okay, and once we call this charge rent method, it will give the money to the person that landed to the person that owns that property. Okay, so that is what properties could do and what properties have. Okay, so I'll draw a line here, another line here. So again, these are called member variables and methods, okay, or member methods. Awesome. Now, hypothetically, let's say that you and me are playing this game, right? We need to create players, right? We need to create objects of this player class. So let's instantiate one player. So that is the programming word that we use when we create a new object, instantiation. Okay, so this is player 1, right? And now let's say you're player 2, so I need to instantiate player 2, right? Oops, not question mark, player 2, sorry. And each player will choose their own token. We'll have the same amount of money from the start, right? We'll have 0 properties, and they will have the option of purchasing properties if they land on the right space, right? So this is the beauty of classes, right? These objects follow the blueprint that we set up here. And for example, in the properties as well, if we look at the board, right, look how many properties there are, right? There are a lot of properties. So we will have to create, just to be able to play the game, we will have to create all these properties, right? Many, many instances of these properties. And the beauty of OOP is that, oops, let me go back here. And the beauty of OOP is that all these instances that we have here, all these objects of the property class, have their own name, color, price, owner, rent, and charge rent method. And this is a concept in OOP called encapsulation, where the object itself is responsible to hold its data, right? So this is OOP with Monopoly.